Or Tampa.
That's
going to have heat and humidity for Greg Papa.
Oh, that's right.
He's got to be ready for that. And all guests are coming to you via the Fire Wings hotline. Try one of their delicious flavors of wings today. Fire Wings, just wing it. Jason Ross, Carmichael Dave, and we're so glad to be joined by the voice of the 49ers. Still sounds weird to say.
Still sounds weird, but we'll get used to it.
Yes, Greg Papa. Greg, how are you?
Wait till Sunday when you hear touchdown. That's gonna sound weird earlier, but not too bad in Tampa. I'm here 93 degrees, 64% humidity. Usually, we're technically still in summer, late summer. Usually you have 90 days there, 90 temperature and the humidity at 90. So, and there will be a later kickoff. They're having a Tim McGraw concert.
Yeah.
2.5 hours before kickoff. I was told initially it was in the pirate ship, and now I've been informed that it's outside the stadium. Because if it's in the pirate ship, how do the players warm up for the game? So,
true.
But they're going to have it outside the stadium. So we're ready to roll. We're ready to roll here.
Before we're going to get into football, obviously, straight out. But I got to ask you, because Greg, you know I'm a huge fan of yours, and I love your work. And before we get to the first game of the season, I read everything about you, and I've read all kinds of stuff lately, kind of a TikTok on your movings and comings and goings and everything that happened. Is there like a huge part of you that's just ready to call football games? I feel like even though you I don't know if you feel it necessary or that you want the truth out there rather than what dumb media guys write. But I also feel like you get incredibly comfortable talking about yourself like that. Am I off?
I'm not sure what you're getting at. I'm not sure what you read. But I
go ahead.
A little bit, for someone who makes his living critiquing others and speaking about others, in an ironic way, I'm uncomfortable.
Yep.
Sometimes I wonder why I get so much attention, and it's obviously because the job change is one reason why, and I've been in the market so long. It's part of what I do. I don't consider myself to be the story, or I'm just there to call a football game. And a lot of people have no idea what the voice is. They just hear a game and they don't really know who that is, and so I think we make too much out of it. I did do football last year. I did 4 college football games. I was around the 49ers a lot. I did 4 preseason games this year, 1 on radio and 3 on TV. So I have called games. So it's not like I'm, looking to get back on the bicycle again because I fell off. It's not, it's what I do.
Yep.
And it'll be a lot more interesting, obviously, and compelling when it's a real game because there's actual competition. So I think the whole thing, from my perspective, it really isn't that different. It's football. It's a lot of new faces and a lot of new names for me, not just the roster, but the support staff, people in the building. I've got to learn 100 people, and I'm not great with names anyway. That's why I got a chart in front of me all the time and names and faces. I forget my own kids' names. So, but it's a lot of new, but it's a lot of the same for me. So, in all honesty, I'll be anxious to get the game going on Sunday and just move on and just treat it like another game.
Yep.
How long is the prep time for you, Greg? So you're getting ready for Tampa. It's week 1. So how many hours or what's your routine to get ready for game 1?
Well, so it's every waking moment constantly. You never stop. The sports world never stops. The football world never stops. I was at practice yesterday and really watched them, piece the team together. In the preseason, because of injury and guys just don't play a lot in the preseason anymore, you really don't have an idea of how the team is going to look. I think I have an idea after watching practice yesterday, and I'll be there again today to see how I think how they envision it. Now, you got to be open to people getting hurt in games, cramping up. Early in the season, you get a lot of that going on, especially when you're playing in Florida. But it's ongoing. It never stops, really. I start to hone in on the other team, watching Tampa earlier this week, and I'll do my boards. I'm going to go to practice today and do a long interview with Kyle Shanahan and also with Quan Alexander. But I'll have all day Saturday in Tampa to really start studying their team and their boards and everything, my board for them. So it's an ongoing process. It's layered. It happens day to day. To say how many hours is really hard to say. Basically, every waking moment that I'm not with my family, I put into it. And the beautiful thing about this generation, Jason, is the video that's available, and I can watch every single Tampa Bay game. I went back and watched the game yesterday morning, that the 49ers played in Tampa. And I knew Jameis played well, but I'd forgotten how well he had played in that game. His movement skill, the 49ers couldn't tackle him. They couldn't sack him. And he made a lot of big throws, one over Richard Sherman's head down the right sideline to Mike Evans. So the beautiful thing about this generation, as opposed to Ron Simmons and Bill King and Joe and Don Klein and earlier generations of play-by-play broadcasters, we have so much video that we can watch, and that's really where I hone in, is just watching the players play. That's the best way to prepare to call the game, is to watch all the athletes that'll be on the field play.
Greg Papa joining us. I want to go back to something you said at the beginning of your answer there. You talked about the weather in Tampa Bay. You talked about players cramping early. When looking at this game and trying to figure out who's going to win or lose, I know this isn't the end-all, be-all, but do we underestimate a little bit the fact, I'm just looking at the weather right now, Greg. Today in Tampa, it's going to be 89. Looks like 93 on Sunday, 94. It's going to be 90s all weekend long, and you're around 75 to 80% humidity. For the first game out of the box, is that more of a home field advantage than sometimes we say it is?
Oh, totally. Yeah. There's no doubt. And for a variety of factors, I think the major one is the way the athletes are prepared to play the season is different than when I first got into the league. And it's like that in all sports. They just don't push them as hard in the preseason. There's too much money on the line. They have too much information. The players wear a GPS wearable right below their nameplate in practice on the back of their jerseys, and they wear it on game day. And they're able to track if they're fatigued and if they're more susceptible to a soft tissue injury. But in this particular game, I think it's most apparent to me where the 49ers may have an edge, because it's where they're really deep, is the defensive line. You got to sub these guys in and out. They got 9 guys on the line right now. It's unusual to have all 9 up on game day on your 46, but you could have 8, certainly 8, maybe 9. I don't know. And with Nick Bosa, just coming back, he's not going to be able to give you, a lot of snaps. He'll give you as many as he can. So that's half a body there. So yes, the dehydration, and my first ever Raider game was in 1997 at the old Liberty Bowl in Tennessee, and it was in Memphis, and it was stifling hot. In fact, I believe the date of the game was August the 31st. We weren't even into September yet. And I remember Raider players and Titans cramping up, and it was a big story in the game. Tim Brown wound up having a huge game, catching 3 touchdown passes. The Raiders lost in overtime. Eddie George had a big game. But yes, the first game out, without question, especially in the defensive line, and the way the 49ers play when they're coming off the ball in this wide 9 and they're running to the ball like a pack of wolves. You just watch them run on Sunday. You're going to have a lot of bodies in and out on the defensive line. And you're going to have, they won't do it on the sideline, but they'll be getting IV bags. Guys will be running up the tunnel to go back and get IV. They'll get IV before the game, halftime. Some guys like them later, whatever you need to make sure you just don't cramp up. And there'll be guys that'll leave the game because they cramp up on Sunday. But the one thing is, it's a late kickoff. It's not kicking off till 4:25 Tampa time, so it's a little bit better. So maybe by the second half, the sun will go down a little bit. But even then, when you're in that part of the country, when the sun goes down, it's still hot and humid. Even till midnight, it will be.
Jeff Fisher versus Joe Bugle, 24-21 overtime.
Was it August 31st?
August 31st.
Amazing.
1997 in front of 30,000 plus at the Liberty Bowl Memorial Stadium.
Is that all was there? Was 30,000 people?
Hey, that's what it says. It says that Al Del Greco with the 33-yard field goal, his third of the day. Eddie George beats, along with Eddie George beats Tim Brown. Tim Brown had a great day that game. Three touchdowns.
He knows it all. He remembers it all.
Insane.
Yeah.
It was like I was there. It's kind of weird.
You're a cyborg. Greg Papa joining us. What are you? Here, let me give you a dumb sports radio question. Your biggest question going into the season with the San Francisco 49ers, specific player, philosophical, whatever it is, what's the question you want answered the most?
Well, I think it'll just evolve, but who will be the number one receiver? And I don't necessarily look at it that way. I think there are number one receivers on each route. There's a primary and a secondary, and I'll give you a big word, a tertiary. I mean, but I can hear Bill Walsh saying that word right now. But beyond that, I think when they cut Jordan Matthews and Marquise Goodwin's the only veteran really in that wide receiver room. They got a lot of talent, but they're different stylistically, each guy. You know, Debo is very different than Dante. Jalen Hurd is going to be a little bit dinged up to start the year, so you're not going to have him, and you're not going to have Trent Taylor. I think they could use George Kittle a lot like a wide receiver and detach him, not have him be in line and move him around like a receiver, so that kind of alleviates that. And they like to have the fullback on the field and or a second tight end, so they don't use a lot of three wide receiver formations compared to other teams. But just who's going to merge? And I don't think you necessarily have to have a number one guy, but if you're playing fantasy and you had to pick a 49er wide receiver, you probably wouldn't to start. But who will lead the team in catches and yards? And last year it was Kendrick Bourne, and that was shocking. And that was more because of all the other guys got injured, starting with Pierre Garçon and obviously Marquise Goodwin and others. So I think the biggest area of uncertainty is the wide receiving core and which one or two or three of these young receivers can rise up and be a go-to guy.
Talk with Greg Papa, voice of the 49ers. Greg, Dave and I were just talking about QB play. Obviously, it's paramount in any team. And to look at Jimmy G, 10 games as a starter, 8-2. I mean, there's a ton of success there, but it still feels like there's some questions based off coming off the injury. What do you think? What do you anticipate the kind of year that Jimmy Garoppolo will have?
Well, let's just hope it's a healthy one. And if he's healthy, I think he has the complete skill set to be an elite quarterback. And I think he's going to be a little bit rusty early in the year, but I think he will play his way through it. I thought he was on point yesterday at practice, and obviously in the preseason games we saw, the one in Denver he struggled. The one in Kansas City, the first drive he started to struggle, but then as he got a first down with a holding penalty on defense, he settled in and played very well. He's very skilled. He's just a gamer, too. He's just one of those guys when it's time to play, it's like he's playing out in the backyard. He's just, different arm angles, keeps the play alive. But he's got to be smart. He's just got to, not take the big hit and get hurt again. So they need him to take every snap or as many meaningful snaps as possible this year. So I don't see anything wrong with him at all. I don't think he's bothered by the knee brace. The knee brace does look a little bulkier than I think it actually is. It is titanium, so it's lightweight. But I don't have obviously he's the quarterback and all eyes go to the guy. But I think he's fine. I think his ultimate success, which will be winning and losing, will be how the other guys play around him. I think we overestimate the quarterback position. But, my mind is going back to when he arrived in 2017. And he took a one-win team and rattled off 5 in a row. And he won some tough games, winning in Houston, winning in Chicago, beating Tennessee at home, Jacksonville at home, and Jacksonville was hot coming into that game, and then beating the Rams at the end. So he's not going to be the reason they don't win as long as he's healthy. But he's got to stay healthy. This is the point in his career where he has a lot riding on it professionally and financially, frankly. So he's got to be smart. And it's football. It's vicious. And the other guys are trying to kill him. There's no doubt. Todd Bowles right now is sitting in a room in Tampa trying to kill him. So he's going to have to just be smart. But I love his skill set. I think you can win a championship with Jimmy Garoppolo as the quarterback.
Greg Papa joining us, voice of your San Francisco 49ers. You were talking about the receiving core. Let's talk about George Kittle, who had an unbelievable year last year, basically out of nowhere. Nobody had George Kittle on their best tight ends list going into the year last season. Do you see him with Jimmy Garoppolo? Do you think that keeps him there or even helps him? Or do you think perhaps there's a chance he might fall off a little bit because you might have a quarterback that can throw to a few more targets?
Well, no, Jimmy knows that George is special, and he's going to be the primary guy on a lot of routes, and they're going to move him around. They're going to get him the ball in creative ways. I was watching the Tampa Bay game last year, and they gave him a little jet sweep action. I think you're going to see more of that. The guy was number 1 in the NFL in yards after catch Christian McCaffrey was second. Look at the guys on that list. If you look it up, they're all running backs. This guy's a tight end. Now, a lot of it is Kyle schemes it up so well, and he pops wide open, where he's got 7 yards of cushion before anybody's near him, and he's got to make a guy miss in space, and he's big and strong. But he's got the complete package. Travis Kelce's a very different player. Zach Ertz from Monte Vista High School and Stanford's a different player. George, there's some areas I think he's got room to grow. He's still a young player, getting in and out of his breaks as a tight end, and also just route running overall. The coaches seem to think he can improve on, but he's a tremendous inline blocker. When I first watched him on tape when he was drafted out of Iowa, I was looking at C.J. Beathard, and then you look at the tight end, and you're like, wow, this guy's just pancaking everybody. He's a great inline blocker. I had no idea. And then you look at he's got 4.52 speed, and some of the catches he made last year were incredible, just incredible. And the catch and runs after, the one against the Chargers, the one against the Raiders, there were a few others. But one area also, I think, the team has got to improve inside the red zone. There's no doubt. And they made that the off-season priority in everything they did. Dead last in the NFL. They were under 42%, scoring touchdowns inside the opponent's 20. George Kittel, I think, needs to be a better red zone target. He had 5 touchdowns last year, and off the top of my head, I think only one was inside the red zone. He ran a little hook route against the Rams and scored on the goal line. But everything, I mean, all the big catch and runs that he had, the 80-yard plus, so I think a few areas he can still improve. He's only it's his third year in the NFL. Is certainly, you'd like to see him be a little bit more of a red zone target and be able to score when the field gets really congested down inside the scoring zone.
Greg, if we just asked you one thing on the opponent, what kind of impact do you think Bruce Arians has on Jameis Winston this year?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Bruce is at a different stage of his life and career. Took a year off to do TV, and he was ill suited for that. He's not calling plays anymore, which really surprises me. When you hire a coach like Bruce Arians, and he wrote a book, his autobiography is entitled "Quarterback QB Whisperer." You want him to work with the young quarterback, and you also want him to call plays. But I think he wants to coach the entire football team, and he's been grooming Byron Leftwich, the former Jacksonville and Steelers player he had there, as the OC, so Byron's going to call plays. But Jameis is capable. I mean, he really is. I've not been a big fan of his. I wasn't a big fan of his coming out of college with all the off-the-field issues. The few times that I have seen him live, I think he has a hard time self-correcting in games where if he misses high a lot, and then he'll miss high the whole game. He won't figure it out. Maybe Bruce Arians can work with him on that and just subtleties of the position. But and the other thing that Bruce has done, obviously Jameis is the big thing. It's the 5th-year option. He's got to make a decision on this guy if he's a franchise quarterback or not. He could go from making Jared Goff-type money or being a backup quarterback in the league. Look at the difference in that. You're talking $100 million down to $3 to $5 million. So that's huge. So he's got a lot riding on this year in every regard. But then the other side of it is Todd Bowles and the defensive pressure. And Todd was Coach Arians' coordinator in Arizona when he was there, and he played for him as well. He's just he heats you up with a lot of blitzes. The other part of this game that is concerning is Weston Richburg, the 49ers center, didn't do anything in the offseason, didn't play in the preseason, just getting back off pup. He is going to be the starting center on Sunday, but that communication, you can't blow protections. And Todd Bowles is going to give you all the exotics, all the Rex Ryan, overloads and come in behind a blitzer and bring a free hitter. And again, going back to Garoppolo and keeping him healthy, you just got to make sure you block the proper guys and people don't get running starts at the quarterback. And that's Todd Bowles and what he does on the defensive side for Coach Arians.
George Kittle with 870 yards after the catch. That led the NFL last year. Christian McCaffrey, 2. Saquon Barkley, 3. James White, 4. The only receivers in the top 11, I should say. Juju Smith-Schuster at number 5. Travis Kelce at number 9. Greg Papa is a cyborg, and
yes.
So are his agents, by the way. I'm also happy to say, along with you, that it was a long negotiation. There was a lot of back and forth, a little bit of, got a little rough sometimes there, but much like Ezekiel Elliott, in the end, we were all able to come together as friends, and we are so freaking happy to say that Greg Papa, the voice of the Niners, will join us each and every week during this season. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, I think that phone conversation with Jason lasted about 3 seconds, right, Jason?
Yeah, it was about that. It was very difficult.
What do you guys got?
Yeah.
I'm in. Do I get to visit with Carmichael Dave every week? I'm in again. So.
Thanks, Greg.
I am looking forward to it. We're going to have fun.
We are too. Thanks, Greg, so much. We appreciate that. Greg Papa, the voice of the Niners. He literally is an encyclopedia.
He's a cyborg.
Yeah.
The Drive.